I think that's one of the problems for those women that are specifically just looking for marriage based on a financial standpoint. Um, you're always going to be in competition with those other women that are looking to marry for financial gain anyway. What about love? What about commitment? What about family? What about all of those things? Why are we putting so much emphasis around the financial part of it? That's why, I mean, let's be honest, that's why so many black women aren't married, because they're approaching it wrong. They're approaching it from a financial standpoint, and that should not be the basis of what a marriage is surrounded in theory. That's
All right, so last week in our during the week in our comments, Mr. Ray Alexander, one of our listeners, sent a comment, and he sent an article, and the article said that the article was, is there a shortage of economically attractive men for women to seriously consider for marriage? A study by Cornell University researchers found that a large number of American men do not earn adequate incomes to provide financial security for a family, and therefore are not economically attractive for this generation of women to consider them as viable marriage partners. The study mismatches in the marriage market found that the men who had not gotten married earned 58% less than those who did, and that women are facing a surplus of men who don't have stable careers or incomes. Interesting. I know. Take that off the screen. So we're going to go to our first question. The first question is, do you think marriage rates are low due to there not being enough economically attractive men? Don't rush to answer that question. Take your time.
So are we gonna I guess qualify that?
We're gonna. You said what now? I'm sorry.
Are we gonna qualify that? I guess what's economically attractive?
Economically attractive, according to the article, words, men who are competitive. We would consider them the high value man. I don't like to use that word because I don't think that qualifies you as being high value. More like the high earner, or the person who is a high achiever in the as far as in the workplace.
What's a high earner?
High earner, well, people say 100,000. I don't think that's so. I think maybe 70,000 and above, 65 and above, depending on where you live. Right. Because a high earner in Alabama could be 50,000. So what y'all think?
I think that's based on what each individual person considers is high value. Everybody's standard is different. Some people feel like it doesn't matter. My income plus their income, let's say you make 60,000, they make 60,000, 120,000. So most people feel like two incomes is better than one anyway. So I think that's going to be based off each individual.
I think that, and good point, sis. I think that I don't think that has, if it does have an impact, it's probably minuscule. Since actually even before 1965, according to Arthur Orlando Patterson, black men hasn't been high earners forever. First of all, it's only a small few. The average black man makes 35 to 42,000 a year anyway. Right, the average, right? So I don't think that it's because of that. I think it's a whole list of things. You have people promoting it doesn't matter if you get married. You have it's so much social construct of I think fear really in reality is the root of why we're not marrying at the rate that we used to, because listen, as a man, I said this before, we know that the average black man makes 35 to 42,000 a year. Be honest. Stop trying to paint a picture like you got it. I know you don't got it. All right. The average of us don't have it, and it's okay. I think the lack of a communication is a big issue between black men and black women, not having tough conversations, being able to say, listen, you know, I make X, Y, and Z. You probably make X, Y, and Z. We can work together, just like they did work together back in the day. It's always black men and black women back in the day always worked together because the man wasn't making. We never made as a whole. We're talking about the majority didn't make a lot the money to be able to take care of everything financial. Our women worked. They was mammies. They worked in the yards. They had jobs. They had plenty of jobs that they was working at that helped the income that came in. And there's so many, I'm a rest at this point. I'm allow someone else to speak, but I can, show you plenty of statistics of us working together. So I don't think that it's the economic part. I just think it's fear, lack of communication, is the real reason.
So I agree with that, but I'm gonna add that I think that I think it might be a part of it. I also don't think it's the major part of it. I think what's happening is that people are approaching relationships from a stance of self-preservation. They're using social media standards to qualify themselves and their relationships. They're disconnected from God, the creator, source, whatever it is. And so they're not grounding out and really trying to connect with people one-on-one. There's a lot of fear as it relates to just marriage. The statistics are showing that it doesn't make sense to marry. So men are even questioning what the point of going down that road is. And we all know that men grant access to relationships and marriage. So, in this climate where it's just not showing to be like a fruitful connection, and people aren't even taking time away from these screens enough to like sit with self and connect with each other, it makes it difficult to get beyond the physical, beyond the just the trivial kind of relationships, or the less, what's the word I'm looking for? Those casual relationships. Like people aren't connecting the same anymore. So I think that more so than there not being enough economically attractive men is what's contributing to the marriage rates being low.
I was going to say that I think is a multifaceted, issue in regards to the reason, there's multiple reasons why, but I do agree with that the rates being low in terms of it being economically attractive, because I think more women are looking for men to at least match where they are like the focus is financially. So if part of the reason why you're getting married is for someone to provide that financial security, you're going to look for someone, and I hear women say this all the time, that I want my man to make more than I do, and then especially if you're focused on those high value, at least six figures and above men, you're going to lessen your opportunities to end up marrying, because there's only but so many. You have more women, after the same small group of men. So in that regard, you're not going to really have access to the man that you want to marry, because not that many Black men are even in that range. So I think it's more from the woman's side, not necessarily the man's side, because for the most part, men have always married down. When you look at, financial, they always married a woman that made less than them anyway. So that's not going to change on their part. I think it changes on a woman's part because they're looking to marry up.
I think that's one of the problems for those women that are specifically just looking for marriage based on a financial standpoint. Um, you're always going to be in competition with those other women that are looking to marry for financial gain anyway. What about love? What about commitment? What about family? What about all of those things? Why are we putting so much emphasis around the financial part of it? That's why, I mean, let's be honest, that's why so many Black women aren't married, because they're approaching it wrong. They're approaching it from a financial standpoint, and that should not be the basis of what a marriage is surrounded in theory. That's my opinion.
And so, Tam, I think that's one of the things that we have to look at, right? Especially in our community, because even though marriage is still based on love, right? It's also this fundamentally fundamentally it's an economic transaction, right? And this transactional relationship, I think, is what turns a lot of people off, being as though we're not bringing the same amounts, so to speak, to the table, right? And so we have to look at that as if Black men are at a disadvantage and we are supposed to come into marriage and lead and provide stability, and provide essentially for our families just in general, when do you feel that you're ready for that? You only really feel that you're ready or prepared for that when you have kind of reached a level of socioeconomic status, right? That not only does the market of women open up for you, but you feel secure and comfortable in providing and walking in that role. So there was another point that was mentioned, I think, Ali, you mentioned that we have to be honest. I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't think a lot of young men are lying. I think young men are being forthright and saying, you know what? I'm not in the position financially to marry you yet. I think that's communicated often. What I do think is the status around being married, marriage being a status symbol for women, rather, I think pushes women to almost pressure men into it, even after they've communicated. I don't feel like I'm in the position. We use this word simp a lot on this network for men who are strong-willed enough, who aren't essentially controlling the narrative, controlling the situation, or who are submitting to what to a woman's direction, rather. So I think we're seeing a lot of that, more than we may be willing to acknowledge. And as a result, we will see people marry, but we won't necessarily see as many successful marriages as we see. So, we have to look at what everybody contributes to this predicament that we're in. And I don't want to go too far into this topic, because I think we would all be remiss if we didn't address why young Black men aren't in the position to marry early on. So I'll pass the mic for you.
I'm curious as to what is a number financially that men feel like is a successful income to where they are ready for marriage.